back for the Friday edition of Closer Look. Love saying Friday.
Yes.
November the 28th. I cannot believe how time flies. This week, I have no idea where it went.
Yeah.
None.
It's Christmas month.
I guess, the whole rush and the hubbub of everything. And,
Yeah.
You know, one day rolls into the next and one show rolls into the next. Good week of shows, too.
Good week shows. We started the week with something festive, vacations, holidays,
Yes.
and we're going to end talking about booze.
And you know what? That's not a bad way to end.
Good way.
Of course, we're going to talk about the whole bottle alcohol bottle recycling issue. We had Gary Sands on from the Canadian Federation of Independent Grocers a few weeks back. It seems as though that problem has now been solved. We talked cloned meat a couple of weeks ago. It seems that Health Canada put the brakes on that.
Yeah.
Look, I don't want to draw any conclusions here.
They saw Scott. Oh, my God, Scott's talking about our issue. We better change our mind. That's what happened. A closer look gets action, yeah. I will take credit for neither of these things.
Look, you want this tariff thing solved?
But it just shows you that we're on top of the big issues that people are talking. I mean, this
Damn
is,
right we are.
Man, we're cloned meat within hours. Cloned meat. Nope, we're pausing that.
It was funny. It was like the next day.
I was just about to try it too, and now it's gone. But this is a great. This is a contentious issue.
It is
recycling. You know, alcohol is people get riled up about it. We just had the issue a couple weeks ago where we talked about warning labels on alcohol.
Oh, that's right.
Lots of opinions on that.
Yeah.
Anyways, for months now, since the Ford government allowed liquor sales in convenience stores and grocery stores, there's been this rule that by January 1st, 2026, all grocery stores have to accept empties as part of their license to sell liquor. This was a huge worry for grocery stores across the province because really, how do you do it? All of a sudden you have this. That's a major operation when you see the beer store do it.
Yeah.
And Gary Sands, like you said, who represents independent grocers around the province, talked about just how a few of them were doing it and just the horror stories, the dirtiness of the bottles. How do you mix that with running a grocery store? And a lot of grocers had said, we're going to get out of this, right?
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. And the Ford government loves this. They've been praising it to Ontarians as, hey, this is a way easier way for you to buy liquor. Loves the plan. So you don't want to have that kind of wrinkle. They have reached an agreement in principle that was reported this week by Canadian Press. We're going to get Gary, who's now a friend of the show, second appearance. He's going to come on and talk about what it means, how it's going to work, and what we don't know yet.
Canadian grocers and the beer store have reached an agreement in principle over a very contentious issue that has lingered for months. Who is going to collect your empties? Some of the details still need to be worked out, but we're going to pour over, no pun intended, what we know so far with a person who's been on the front line of these negotiations, Gary Sands. Gary is the VP of Policy and Advocacy with the Canadian Federation of Independent Grocers. Gary, a little different this time. We're having some tech issues, but happy to bring you in on the phone, and we appreciate your time here on Closer Look tonight.
Well, glad to join you. And sorry about the tech issues, and that's a field where I'm challenged.
Well, that makes three of us, and I'll even add Derek, our producer, into that mix, so that's four. Gary, let's dive right in here. For those who don't know about this saga, let's start from the beginning, if we can. The Ford government made a big splash expanding alcohol sales to grocery and corner stores, but there was a catch. By the 1st of January, grocery stores with liquor selling licenses had to agree to accept empties. Why was that such a concern for the grocers that you represent?
Because they have to differentiate between beer stores and the LCBO and a food environment. And the paramount concern to us was that around food safety. Having, first of all, where in the store does the customer bring back the empties? Do you plop them down by your fruit and veggies area? Do you plop them near the bakery or the meat section? And if you've ever been in an area where you have, where in a room where there's beer and wine and cans have been deposited, the smell is very strong. So that's certainly not something that enhances the food experience for customers. But food safety and the risk of cross contamination, that was top of our list. We know from talking to the retailers who have done the recycling, it's been a nightmare. And aside from the food safety issues, if you're an independent grocer, and generally your store size is going to be a little smaller than a big chain, you also have to find space in your store to sort these things, store them, and get them ready for pickup, which we interpreted to mean clean them. And that means something in the store is coming out. What in the store is coming out? If you're an independent grocer on an overall margin of 2%, and that's not a figure I picked out of the air, that's their profit margin according to StatsCan. You're having to take something out that's either generating revenue or is essential for your food operations. So that was a big concern as well, just the logistical challenges in a smaller store. And then on top of that, of course, and I wouldn't be being candid if I didn't say yes, and cost was a factor as well, sure, because you'd have to be hiring staff to sort these things, clean them, moving them around, and also finding the money to invest in infrastructure, because you're going to have to. We know from the ones who have been doing the recycling, they're having to put in extra pest controls and other cleaning measures just to protect their employees. Mm-hmm.
And just so our listeners and viewers are clear, you represent the sort of smaller grocery stores, not the Loblaws or the Metros or those guys.
That's right. Those are the Bay Street grocers. I represent the Main Street grocers. And actually, it might come as a surprise to people, but 59% of the grocery stores in Ontario are actually independents. That doesn't translate into, of course, buying power, but in terms of the brick and mortar stores that populate the province, the majority are independents. They're bigger than convenience stores, and they have to meet the definition of what is a grocery store, selling the full range of products that defines a grocery store. But yeah, generally speaking, with a few exceptions, their stores are going to be a little smaller than a big chain.
Gary, if I recall from our last conversation, some grocers had actually threatened to forfeit their liquor license if this wasn't fixed. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely correct. And we were not blowing smoke on that. There were independents who already had licenses that had been awarded by the previous government when they started to open up the system to grocery stores. And they publicly said, we're out of the business on January 1st. We are not doing that. The other thing, too, is that we had several hundred, I don't want to say thousands, but there's thousands of grocery stores in Ontario. And I can safely say there were several hundred grocery stores that didn't even apply for licenses because they had this recycling requirement hanging over their heads. There was just no way they were going to take that on.
Gary, thanks for that. Let's fast forward to this week, and a deal in principle, of course, has been reached. What are the details as far as you understand them?
I better understand it because
you cut the deal.
Yeah, we cut the deal, and it's an agreement in principle. So basically, if you're an independent grocery store or a chain grocery store in Ontario, you now have three options. One is you don't have to sell beer and wine. Two, you can do the recycling store if you want and deal with all the issues that I mentioned. Now there's a third option. The third option is the beer store will pay or will pick up all the empties, or they won't pick them up. Sorry, the consumer will return the bottles and cans to the nearest beer store location, and the grocer will reimburse the beer store for those. And the reimbursement's based on how much alcohol is the grocer buying. So that's how it's calculated. Convenience stores, for some reason, are exempt. They don't have to participate in this. So the costs of this are being borne solely by grocers, both the chains and the independents. And it's 17 cents per bottle or can. That's the cost. As well, the grocer is required to post a sign at the front of their store prominently, indicating the location of the nearest beer store to them, and also they have to post the same sign in the area that they sell alcohol.
So what's the cost, Gary? 17 cents per bottle or can that they buy to sell. They have to pay back to the beer store to recycle it?
That's right.
That seems like, maybe my math isn't good, but that seems like a lot of money.
Well, it's not cheap, but you got to remember there was always going to be a cost. So the cost to the grocer of if you were going to do this, the extra food safety protocols you'd have to put in place, and even if you can overcome those, the logistics, the infrastructure, the investments you'd have to make there. So it is not cheap. It would be cheaper if the costs were spread around a little bit more and the convenience stores were included. But, that might happen at some point in the future. Who knows? But we think this is a good compromise, a reasonable solution for everyone. And actually, I want to be positive about it. I don't want to be the glass, pardon my pun here, the glass half empty. But, the government and the beer store worked with us seriously and sincerely to try and find a resolution. And as far as we're concerned, this is a resolution that we can recommend to our members. Remember, it's going to be up to each grocer to sign the agreement. We've endorsed the agreement and we are recommending it that our members accept it, but ultimately it will be up to the independent grocer, individual grocer, independent and chain, whether they want to sign this or not.
Here's one of the sticking points of the things that stuck out for me, Gary, is the brewers, the beer stores, committing to ensuring there's a point of recycling available within 10 kilometers for the, quote, vast majority of the population. But we know that there's a lot of people that don't live within 10 kilometers of a beer store, including the places where I assume a lot of your independent grocers operate. How are you going to deal with that?
I think that's the question you need to put to them. I mean, that's why these discussions, negotiations were sort of a tripartite process where the government was involved too. So, in terms of, the question you're asking, it falls outside the scope of the agreement that we negotiated. We've just been, we've heard the same assurances you have that there will be a way for the beer store to get these to a place where they can be recycled. Remember, though, I would just point out that, so let's look at a rural community where maybe it's only the independent grocery store is the only grocery store in that community. And if this recycling requirement had not been lifted, that grocery store wouldn't be selling beer and wine either. They'd be out of the business, and right now I can tell you the vast, overwhelming majority of the grocery stores in those communities that I'm describing, they have refused to apply for licenses. So it's sort of an academic question, if you know what I mean.
Yes,
at least if you're in that community, now you'll have, assuming that the grocers going to want to enter into this agreement, at least the people in that community won't have to drive 20, 25 kilometers somewhere to buy a case of beer or a bottle of wine for the holidays. But that's, as I said, the issue of how the beer store, the logistics of their recycling program, that's up to them to answer, and I wouldn't want to weigh in onto their turf.
That's a great point.
Yeah, Gary, you would think certainly on the surface it's a huge relief for grocers, and I know it's early days, but what are you hearing from your members?
Relief and just a huge sigh of relief. The calls and emails I've been getting from members since then is just, thank you and how relieved they are, and that they now see a path forward. Remember, you have to go back to what the government sold this as being, which was a great objective, which was to provide more convenience and choice for consumers. With the recycling requirement hanging over the grocers, that wasn't going to happen. There are too many grocery stores, and take yourself outside of the Toronto area and you go up to a lot of those rural communities where there's only that independent grocery store, and they just weren't going to do this. And so now they're just relieved that they're going to be able to provide more choice and convenience for their communities. And so we're actually going back to helping realize what the government's original objective of this whole thing was. And, the other advantage too is that now with more stores getting into this business, you're going to have more competition.
The real question is, how influential was our podcast in getting this done? Because you were on our podcast a couple times talking about this issue. That's the real question, Gary.
listen, I actually think yours helped play a part, and there's been a lot of media coverage of this issue, and I think your podcast and all we've there's been a lot of TV, print, media, radio coverage of this issue, and I do think that helped. Focus the attention on for everyone that we needed to find a solution. And like I said, I do want to end this conversation on an upbeat, positive note, because again, I listen, when this was hanging over us, how critical I was of the government.
Yes.
And now they've worked with us to find a solution. Yes, there's a cost involved to our grocers, but I think it's a reasonable solution, and it's one we can endorse and recommend. So I give them kudos for actually sitting down and realizing that didn't work. We need to find another option.
I appreciate that. We need more solutions in this world, Gary. We need more issues to come up with everyone to come together and figure out a way. This is obviously a good example of that. So what are the next steps? Did you have to put it to your members to vote on this in some way?
Yeah, not vote. We expect probably Monday we'll be sending out the agreement to our members, and they will have to sign it and return it to us. We will then in turn forward them to those agreements to the beer store, and then the next steps have to start progressing, which is that signage will have to be developed for the individual stores, because the location of where you're taking these things is going to vary from store to store throughout the province.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is a fair question to ask you, but obviously the state of the recycling program that the beer store runs is such a successful program. I assume in your discussions with them, that was important to them to make sure that this stayed in place because it is so successful.
Yes, I think it was to all of us involved in the negotiations. Everybody recognized that we all want the same thing. Regardless of what hat we're wearing during the negotiations, we're all consumers too. So we want to see a successful recycling program. It's just that for us, we and I'm being honest and saying I'm representing our members, but we didn't feel having these things come back into a food environment and being right by your food is appropriate. And like I can tell you some of the stories we've heard. I mean, in the summer, these things are become like asylum for yellow jackets. We've had customers come in and plop their dirty bottles and leaking cans all over the belts where you're putting your groceries to go through the checkout, and that's a problem, because then you have to, obviously the staff have to go over and they have to clean those before another person's stuff and obviously goes on it. So I can go on and on about the problems, and like I said, this is just we're breathing a huge collective sigh of relief, and I anticipate a lot of our members are going to sign these agreements.
All right, that's good stuff. Glad you guys got a deal done. Gary, before we let you go, anything that we didn't cover that we should have?
No, I can't think of it. Honestly, you've covered everything. You even have the details of the agreement, the 17 cents and the signage. And a lot of our members will be seeing that next week when they get the agreement in the mail.
Great. They don't call us Closer Look for nothing.
No.
Good stuff. There's Gary Sands, the VP of Policy and Advocacy for the Canadian Federation of Independent Grocers. Gary, good as always to talk to you. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too, my friend. Bye.
So glad to see that they were able to get a deal in principle. The one thing that we didn't talk to Gary about, and we should have, was cloned meat.
Yes.
And how his members feel about that.
That would have been a great conversation. If we had more time. The honest truth is we had a little squeezed for time because Gary had some technical issues. We'll blame Gary for it. He's a good guy. He'll laugh about it. So we did, and that's why it was an audio interview today, but it worked out well. But he did have an important meeting right at the end he had to run to, so we didn't get to ask him about cloned meat. Maybe he was going to a meeting to talk about cloned meat.
You never know. Next time, that's the first question we will ask Gary Sands.
I will tell you, we're all for solutions. We do talk about a lot of contentious issues on this podcast, but when we can talk about something that people are able to come to a table and work something out for the benefit of everybody in Ontario, that's a good day.
It absolutely is. And been a good week. Closer Look at villagemedia.ca, closerlookpodcast.ca if you'd like to sign up and have episodes sent straight to your inbox. We're happy to do it and would love to have you. Have a great weekend. Thanks for your time this week. As always, we appreciate it. And as always, tonight's show produced by Derek Turner. For Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you Monday night at 7 right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.